You've been lost in the woods for hours now, stumbling around in the dark. You come around the bend and see two people roasting marshmallows over a roaring fire. They see you coming into the clearing and gesture over to pull up a log. Welcome to Campfire Ashes. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jess. Join us as we tell each other our originally written spooky stories around the campfire and then dive into the lore and legends that inspired them. Is it something that goes bump in the night? Is it something menacing lurking past the tree line? Or is it just weird and otherworldly? You'll find it here on Campfire Ashes.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or right here on the Geekscape Network.
What's up, everybody? This is Brian here to tell you about our podcast, Bingetown TV. Our hosts include 7 best friends with a love for all things television. We cover a range of genres with a focus on fantasy and sci-fi, but also dip our feet into drama, horror, comedy, and pretty much anything we think is good television. We use the traditional deep dive formula for new live shows that are released week to week, but our calling card is our Rooks and Vets and Pitchtown TV series. Rooks and Vets pairs 2 of our hosts that have seen a show with 2 of our hosts that have not seen a show. Pitchtown TV is when we have a special guest pitch us a show by having us watch the pilot and trying to convince us to watch the rest. If you're craving more content on some of your favorite TV shows, then you should listen to Bingetown TV. Find us on our website at bingetowntv.com, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, or wherever else you may find your podcast.
And welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week, we are talking about The Church from 1989 as picked by Scott, and we are down a host, but we came up with a pretty sweet replacement here to talk about his upcoming graphic novel, Youth Group. We have Jordan Morris. Jordan, welcome, buddy.
It's me, a pretty sweet replacement.
I would say
thought
an
that it
upgrade.
was just that Kyle grew a beard and got curly hair, but I'm surprised.
No, you know it's not him because he doesn't have some type of weird image from the movie behind him instead of his actual abode. That was the giveaway. Otherwise, I was confused.
Yeah,
I'll do my best to bring a Kyle-like energy to the proceedings.
Listen, very few people can.
yes, he's a singular character. Now, Matt, a question for you: did you pick Jordan to come on this episode because it's the church and his new graphic novel is Youth Group?
No, you would
Was it
think.
just
I sent him a list of everything that was coming up, and he said, I want to talk about The Church from 1989.
Oh, okay. Well, now, Jordan, then the question goes to you. Was this your first watch of the church?
It was, and oh man, why have I never seen this movie? I'd never heard of this movie. It's fucking wild. I had a blast watching it. I never would have just randomly booted this up on Tubi.
Yeah.
had I not the obligation to watch it for the podcast, but man, I'm so glad I did. This is a crazy movie. I was blown away.
So, Jordan, I got a question for you. Do you know what this movie was originally conceived as before it became The Church?
No, tell me everything. I want to know all the history. I'm a church head now.
Yeah. Well, there's not that much. This was originally Demons 3. This was supposed to be the third part in Argento's Demons trilogy.
Okay. I have not seen any of those movies. I've only seen a couple of Argentos. I've liked all of them I've seen.
Opera. Have you seen Opera before?
No, I haven't. Is that a good one?
Opera is a good one.
It might be his best. It's the most cohesive.
See, that's not for me. That's not for me. I liked how this movie was hard to follow. I liked it how things happened randomly for no reason. I like how random characters were dumped into the movie that we didn't know anything about halfway
That's called
through.
cannon fodder.
I loved it.
Well,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
like that's the thing about this movie, right? Is like we have this insane medieval times era opening sequence.
Loved
So
it.
you
just
know
like
I
this-
picked it. I mean, like,
Yeah. Crazy massacre, all of that. Then in like classic Argento style, gets like a little boring for a little bit because it's just like people doing people things. And then, like you said, just a bunch of nameless people trapped in a church, and just like every 2 minutes, someone is dying, and you're just like, "All right, cool. This was worth the wait."
Or having a crazy hallucination, or having sex with a demon, or using their husband's head to ring a bell.
That was the highlight for me.
Really?
It just cuts to that shot, and I was like, "This." Well, okay. Second highlight, obviously the demonic fish puppet thing that he was.
Yep.
Love
Thank
fish
you.
puppet.
That was my favorite.
It does seem like they just had props from other movies lying around, and then they're like, "Okay, we have this church location. We can shoot here for a week. We have a fishman prop from a Creature from the Black Lagoon ripoff."
I think that was
We
from
have an-
Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. That was the thing that comes out of the casserole, and they were just like, "Here."
I think the other thing about it is like I had to be reading the Wikipedia while watching this movie because I'm like, I feel like I'm missing something. Wikipedia, I think, was also just people making guesswork because, like, at one point,
Wikipedia just says under plot summary, "Your guess is as good as mine."
because there's the like soap in your mouth part of that movie,
Fantastic.
Right.
and it's like
Loved it.
you see this weird reflection in the mirror, and according to Wikipedia, it's that her father's reflection is a demonic ape. That's not what I pulled from that scene.
I just saw a monkey.
whatsoever.
I saw a sunburnt monkey.
I thought it was bird-like. I thought it was like a little bird with a little stumpy beak.
Yeah. Look,
Well, I feel bad
again,
for the
like you said,
actor,
your guess is as good as anyone.
Again, we're all right and we're all wrong. That's the thing about the church. Everyone is as right and wrong as everyone else.
Now, here's the thing about this movie is that the concept is Argento. The screenplay is co-written between Argento and Soavi, which is the guy who directed it. Now, Soavi did, he started out as an actor. They're all Italian.
No.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Really?
I know stage fright is somehow connected to this.
No, he directed Stage Fright in 87.
Yeah.
I think that he directed Stage Fright and then The Church and then The Sect. What you lose with Argento taking his name off of things, I mean, or it says like, a Dario Argento film, or from Dario Argento, because
when he steps into like a producer
he's a
or executive producer role,
half
you
screenwriting,
get a lot crazier shit that happens.
Yeah, well, the thing is that Soavi was so mad with this movie that he said he didn't want it to be in the Demons franchise or in like the universe of it. Although it really does follow all the beats of Demons and Demons 2, which I've never seen Demons 4.
You just said something, and I'm curious now. Is this one of those films similar to how the horror show kind of fucked up the house numbering,
movies,
where
yes.
there's just no Demons 3, it just goes 1, 2, 4?
Yeah. Soavi referred to the Demons movies as pizza schlock.
Should we change our podcast name?
To
Because
Pizza Schlock?
Pizza Schlock is exactly
Solid.
what we make.
That's solid.
Yes. Well, the thing about The Church is that it was like a good 8 years where Argento and Soavi were like basically besties. This movie killed that friendship.
This is their Groundhog's Day, basically.
Yes, exactly. But they
But
apparently
it turned out
Soavi-
so wonderfully. They should have seen
I
how
love
good
this
the movie
movie.
was and then said, let's bury that.
Well, it's because Soavi wanted it to be more serious. He was like, it needs to be an
huge
elevated,
mistake.
serious movie. And the Demons franchise is very heavy metal horror. It doesn't take itself too
I gotta
serious.
check out those movies.
You would love the Demons movies.
The whole concept of Demons is that it's basically a zombie movie, but they're demonically possessed.
It's also that each one takes place in a confined location.
Yes, that's the
So
whole
the
point.
first one is in a movie theater, the second one is in an apartment complex, third one is in a church. It totally it fits all of the beats of the other two Demons films, honestly.
Yeah, and
The
there's a
church
fourth
really,
one, but I've never seen it, so I have no idea what it's like.
I'm sure it's probably the same. I don't know.
Well, I don't
What's
even
the
know
next
who
thing that they
did it.
could be trapped in? I don't know. I'm
I-
trying to think of the next venue of
Probably a mansion
of a demonic
because
possession. Yeah, why not?
There are a lot of villas in Italian horror that they just rent out for, like Jordan said, they rent them out for a week. Now, the funny thing about The Church was that they really wanted it to be in like Czechoslovakia at the time. It's called Czech Republic now. And then they went to Germany and they really wanted it in Nuremberg. And Nuremberg, they were like in the process of booking this for a month long, I believe, shoot in this church. And Nuremberg's mayor or something was like, yeah, we're not doing a horror movie in Nuremberg. So they could not do it there. So they eventually found the one that they did the majority of the work for this movie. I think it was between 2 or 3 locations totally, because they did outside shooting and then they did inside shooting in different places. But I believe that they are both in Budapest. So that's where they ended up. So it's an Italian film shot in Budapest with mostly Italian people speaking very bad English that is then poorly ADR'd. But then you also have...
I was going to ask about that. The is this dubbed question.
It's what it kind of comes down to. A lot of these movies, the ADR is real rough, and it's usually a double whammy, right? Like it's ADR'd because the actors don't speak strong enough English, but it's also usually because these movies are so cheaply thrown together that I'm sure the audio recording in the first place is just like a nightmare. They're walking around catacombs recording. There's no way that they avoided echo like a motherfucker in those sets.
But, one thing I'll say is that I think the sets are fantastic. I think that the props, like you said, Jordan, they're fantastic. I am amazed at how much a mess the score is, because let me read this to you. This is from the Wikipedia. While preparing for the film, Argento learned that Keith Emerson would be interested in writing the score, having worked with him previously on Inferno. He received his 12-track demo, which Argento did not like, and he is quoted saying, "They were terrible. Not even a child would have written music like that. A sort of bombastic march. It sounded like the Carabiniera fanfare." Then it says only 3 tracks by Emerson were used in the film. And then for the rest of the score, Soavi inserted 2 tracks by Philip Glass and relied on Fabio Pignatelli, who is credited as Goblin. So Goblin, the band, Claudio Simonetti did a lot of work in Goblin as well. He did all the music for a lot of later Argento stuff as well. And Goblin did Suspiria, they did Tenebra, they did...
Isn't there a cut of Dawn of the Dead where they have the music?
I think they did do a cut of Dawn of the Dead too,
Yeah. I mean, them and Tangerine Dream were basically like the only bands making scores back then. But like Philip Glass, he did like the Candyman theme. I think that he did work on... I mean, he was already very well established by 88, probably when they were in production for this. So... having Philip Glass like kind of just injected by Soavi into this is so interesting to me.
Jordan, I need to know, because I think this was a first watch for all of us, and I actually barely took...
No.
Okay, well,
I
first watch.
Pre-watch these movies, man.
It was a first watch for 2 of us. I had very few notes, and I would love to just know, because I went into this completely blind with the only thing that I knew that this was supposed to be Demons 3. You went in even blinder than me. What was the thought process just as this movie starts and you get this immediate massacre of just an entire village?
Yeah, I mean, love that. Love a movie with a time jump. And and the whole thing, this sequence especially, this crusade sequence, which is great. It really has a, hey gang, let's put on a show feel.
It's
like the
like
costumes seem like they are from the Ren Fair. As does the little village that they're in later. It does seem like they just let them shoot at the Ren Fair on the day that it was closed. Yeah, and I love I love that kind of kooky practical gore. They clearly had one head for this scene.
Boy, did they.
They chop off one person's head, and then there are just multiple shots of the head that they cut to. They're like really getting their money's worth out of that one head. I wonder if it is the same head that she is using to ring the bell later.
I would put every dollar that I own down that yes, it was.
Right. Like we spent $1,000 on this head. It's half the budget. We're gonna get our money's worth.
The first 5 minutes of this is basically like, R.I.P. to a legend. If Roger Corman had made a Game of Thrones movie, it's like what we're getting. It's just like hyper violence. I love. The immediate moment that I was like, all right, I'm into this, is literally the POV shot through the mask with the cross.
Yeah.
And the framing of people running. It's weirdly funny for how actually disturbing and historically accurate to shitty things it is. But I think it's literally just the guy being like, they're all witches. We've got to kill them. Jump cut to just a woman screaming through a cross that's chasing her. And I'm like, oh, that's...
And it is like a really
like what you're doing.
technically cool movie, right?
Yeah.
Like it is I mean, the definition of a good bad movie basically is this, it is like so cheesy and so crazy, but like pretty technically cool in some places. And yeah, I think those shots through the helmet, the helmet with the cross, I think are really neat. And there's a bunch of cool kind of innovative, unique stuff in this, despite it being just so insane.
There was part of me that hoped that the whole scene was going to be through that POV.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Like that it was like going to be just like 30 or 40 seconds of you just seeing through one person's view this massacre. Kind
You
of
could have
like
done
the
that,
opening
Matt,
of
with
Halloween.
your fingers.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I did. I sat there. I was so upset. But like I was dancing in Pulp Fiction. I was just ready to go. This has to have the wildest way that a person has killed themselves in a movie, because a jackhammer is that's a pretty metal way to take yourself out of the picture.
I loved that. It
Never
took me
seen
a
it
while to
again.
figure out what was happening, and it was a man killing himself by laying down on a jackhammer. Who he comes back later. I mean, whatever. No, there's no sense trying to parse the logic of it.
This
I
movie
realize,
literally,
but he does come back later with no jackhammer going through.
Yeah.
But like, this is the other thing. As we've learned through the rest of watching this movie, that is a risky, like the amount of work that one would have to put into to make that jackhammer situation work out correctly. Whereas clearly, as the bishop proved to us, you can just go to the top of the building. There's plenty of pointy things to fall on. Like
a lot of spikes. A lot of spikes you can just throw yourself on.
Yeah, he really went the
classic
longest
insane religious person death.
Yeah, he went the longest routed way to possibly, the most painful and hardest way to pull this off. He went with, which good for him. We have this wedding couple who doesn't. Here's where I'm confused. So I work at a church. I know how weddings work. It seems like they're in the church just for photos, but not for a wedding.
They're not getting married. They
Here's
lied.
what I think is going on. Yeah,
Okay.
They're
I
doing a
think there
photo
is some
shoot.
sort of bride company, some sort
Yes.
of wedding outfit company is doing like a photo shoot outside. You see a little line of other brides.
Yeah.
And I think they're supposed to be just like vapid models, the two bride and groom. So I think they are just there.
No,
There's
you're
a little
absolutely right.
commentary there when she starts peeling her face
Yes.
off of like,
Yeah.
oh, this vain model is vain. Anyway, but yeah, I think they lied about being a couple.
All right.
Yeah,
because
that
I
was
was
just
very
because he
turned
was
off
gonna
by
kick him out
by
otherwise.
how much the what seemed to be the mother of the bride could have cared less about her daughter's life and just wanted to make sure. Just wanted to make sure the dress didn't get destroyed. Just
Yeah.
Yeah, she said it's really expensive. Matt, I don't know how you missed this part. You must have went and got water, because it's just so funny to me. I love imagining you watching this being like, man, that mom's a bitch. It's not what was happening at all.
Well, that's how I read it. Like, again, the Wikipedia, the least dependable thing. This is how it lists the people that are in the. It says among the occupants is a class of school children on a field trip, a bride taking her wedding photographs, an elderly couple, and an argumentative pair of teenage bikers. Which, like,
Yeah. Do you think there's an element of like each of these people in here is supposed to maybe represent one of the deadly sins? Like she's vanity, and the biker couple who are the most hard to parse in this. Like, who are they? I think maybe it's jealousy, right? He seems to be kind of mad at her for talking to another guy, and then later he hallucinates her like naked
Making
with
out
an
with
angel hunk.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if there's something to that where everybody in the movie represents one of the deadly sins, but
I'm sure that there was an idea there somewhere that got
I don't
lost
think it was
along
fully
the way.
fleshed out. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a very Italian horror thing. It's
4
like,
or
I got this
5
good
of the
idea.
deadly sins.
Yeah,
are
they couldn't
represented.
get enough in there.
Right.
The budget wouldn't stretch that far. When you're talking about the teenage biker pair, that death is insanity.
It's great. It's so funny.
I
It's
knew
so
it was
funny.
coming, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the girl that gets smushed by a subway train, and then you see her face turn into a big ball of chewing gum. It's crazy. There's no blood. It's just or like a potato. It's like a smashed potato.
Yeah. They're trying to dig their way out of the church, I guess, and then
Yeah.
they dig
Yeah.
their way into the subway.
But how
tunnel
did the
and
subway
train
miss
hits her?
the crypt with all the demons and the bodies from the beginning?
Scott, the idea that a subway train is running underneath a church and no one knows that it's coming is already outrageous in the first place.
This is where my suspension of disbelief
Every
fucking
service
breaks.
would just be like shaking every hour or so as the train ran underneath it.
I know. It's so much like hay is made of like, oh, this church is built on this like, demonic burial ground. It's like when they were digging the subway terminal, did they not dig up any demons there?
They
Anyway,
missed it. They
just missed the demons.
They
Just
weren't
missed
allowed
it.
to because they did the surveying and it was like, nope, demons here. So they just only went to the rock outcropping next to it. Now, the thing that also is hard for me to believe is that, when they're talking about, by the way, the kids are there on a field trip. And I love the tour guide, teacher, whatever she is like, okay, now it's time for you guys to go see the tomb of the architect, and kids are like, hey, because I know that was always my favorite thing was
tombs,
let me see the dead bodies. But the explanation is that when Lottie, who's Asia Argento in one of her first performances. Now, Asia Argento is Dario Argento's daughter. She went on to be in a ton of Argento movies. I don't know what she's doing now, but in any case, Lottie is like supposed to be 14, a little bad girl, likes to go smoke and drink and go to the discotheque. By the way, that discotheque has the most incredible song where there's I believe that the lyrics go to hell, you'll see me there as well.
Yep, that was the line I heard. That was absolutely the rhyme I heard.
As the music guy, do you know anything about that song? Was it written for the movie? Like it's so on the
It had to
nose.
have been. Come on. I don't know. There wasn't anything in Wiki or IMDb about it, but I'm sure that if I were to go find some like deep cut Angel Fire website, that's all about Argento movies, I'm sure I could find some information. But maybe I could just ask TikTok, because that's probably a little bit easier. That's where everybody gets their answers now.
A lot of good information on that thing.
A lot of good and a lot of bad information. But the thing
know what
about
you're talking
Lottie,
about.
she like gets these memories back from her previous life, right? And that's how you get all of the exposition. And they explain that the architect was tortured and then murdered under the church, and he's like the failsafe to like destroy the church, right? But the architect
That's rad.
That's
That's such a cool concept.
The thing, though, is that the priests that are torturing the architect say, "Oh, you're an alchemist," and he said, "It's science. It's just contagion. It's not demons. Anything you don't understand, you call alchemy," which goes completely contrary to the fact that you see people getting turned into demons because of this contagion. So it's a demon contagion. So they're both right and they're both wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly what the screenplay was trying to
It's
say
like they're
there.
trying to have a little commentary there, right? Of like, when people encounter something they can't explain, they, turn to religion and blah, 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 right? Like but this is in a movie where those people are right. The demons are right, and they should destroy the church and kill everyone in it. Like, that's the correct thing to do.
And is it keeping it open for a sequel to The Church by saying that the tower didn't crumble? Is that what they're trying to say? I don't know.
Well, it definitely seems to imply that the only survivor, Lottie, is now going to be possessed similarly to Evan in that final shot.
Yeah.
So I would say yes. Can we talk about my favorite line of the movie? And it's mostly just the read of the line, but it's when our one good pastor, Gus, finds out that the bishop is kind of behind a little bit of this, and he's got all the ancient scrolls, and he's just like, "It goes with me," and he like, as he's like falling off a cliff. I was like, I love this so much.
Altruism is a lost art when it comes to priests and 80s horror movies.
Oh boy, is it.
You've been lost in the woods for hours now, stumbling around in the dark. You come around the bend and see two people roasting marshmallows over a roaring fire. They see you coming into the clearing and gesture over to pull up a log. Welcome to Campfire Ashes. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jess. Join us as we tell each other our originally written spooky stories around the campfire and then dive into the lore and legends that inspired them. Is it something that goes bump in the night? Is it something menacing lurking past the tree line? Or is it just weird and otherworldly? You'll find it here on Campfire Ashes.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or right here on the Geekscape Network.
What's up, everybody? This is Brian here to tell you about our podcast, Bingetown TV. Our hosts include 7 best friends with a love for all things television. We cover a range of genres with a focus on fantasy and sci-fi, but also dip our feet into drama, horror, comedy, and pretty much anything we think is good television. We use the traditional deep dive formula for new live shows that are released week to week, but our calling card is our Rooks and Vets and Pitchtown TV series. Rooks and Vets pairs 2 of our hosts that have seen a show with 2 of our hosts that have not seen a show. Pitchtown TV is when we have a special guest pitch us a show by having us watch the pilot and trying to convince us to watch the rest. If you're craving more content on some of your favorite TV shows, then you should listen to Bingetown TV. Find us on our website at bingetowntv.com, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, or wherever else you may find your podcast.
Do you like to laugh, geek out on music, and learn all about that band or artist who had that one song back in the day, but then seemed to fall off the face of the earth? If so, you need to subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Together with an array of interesting and hilarious guests, we do a weekly dive into one-hit wonders like Eiffel 65's Blue, Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci, EMF's Unbelievable, Delamitri's Roll to Me, Los Del Rio's Macarena, Musical Youth's Pass to Dutchie, and even Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind. So are you subscribed to One Hit Thunder or what? As Desiree would say, you gotta be. And as K7 would encourage, you gotta come, baby, come and join in on the fun of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come, come. Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come.
Speaking of priests and 80s horror movies, there's a lot of them, and any one of them could make for a great double feature. So, Scott, I have to ask you, what double feature would you have gone with? If
This
you
was
were
so hard.
doing this. I had
This was
3
so
different
hard.
options, and none of them were good.
Well, I mean, first of all, so Jordan, to kind of to elaborate on what we try to envision with the double features on our episodes is, if it's a bad night, are you going to make it a better night? Are you going to make it a worse night? If it's a good night, are you going to make it better or worse? You know, like there are a couple. It's a choose your own adventure, and a lot of times when Matt picks things, I'm trying to make the night better. I'm trying to save the night. The Church is flawless. The Church is a masterpiece. So I don't know how
Just
I
watch
could go.
The Church again.
Yeah.
just start the movie again and watch it twice.
I'm going to go with another extremely long religious horror movie. I'm going to go with John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. Not the first movie
that's a good
that came to mind, but what I think has the same amount of insanity in it, but with a bit more coherence.
Okay, Jordan,
And I would
how
start
about
with
you?
The Church, by the way. I think that The Church is a better movie to start with because the ending of The Church isn't nearly as bleak as the ending of Prince of Darkness. Have you seen Prince of Darkness, Jordan?
I have. It's great.
Yeah, okay. It's just such a bleak ending that you're like, okay, I'm going to go to bed now. You know? That's the idea.
Maybe I forget the end of that movie. I've definitely seen it, but
It's got time travel in it, too. I forgot
okay.
that.
Great.
Yeah. Because of the
It's basically just the world
neutrinos.
ends.
Yeah. So that's Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy. It's The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and then In the Mouth of Madness. And Dario Argento did
Madness is the one I've seen. Maybe I have not seen.
Oh, Prince
Yes.
of Darkness is great. It's got Donald Pleasance in it as a priest scientist. Is that how you want to?
It's a hard movie too. I feel like it's.
I used to hate it. Now I love it.
You love that movie. I feel like I get a headache trying to explain that movie.
Oh, which
Like,
one's
I'm
more
just
difficult to explain, Matt? This, that, or the Church? You know, like they're not.
Well, the Church didn't really need explanation. You watch
You
it for the
just
kills
watch
and
it
then move
exist
on.
inside
Yeah.
of the Church. All
Yeah,
right.
In the Mouth of Madness is the cult one, right?
yes,
Yeah,
that's the
with
one with
Sam
Sam
Neill.
Neill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is a good movie. Okay. So a couple things come to mind. One, hey, why don't we just watch season 1 of Fleabag? Because I mean, Hot Priest ain't got nothing on Father Gus, right?
No.
The original Hot Priest.
Yeah, she would
I
have
like-
definitely tried to get him to leave the church.
Right. Here's something funny about Father Gus. We see him shooting a bow and arrow, and I'm like, well, this is one of those things where you learn a character does something because it will be important in the end game. It is not. He does no archery at any other point in the movie. He has this easy, like, useful in battle skill. and then it just does not come up later. That's so insane. But I have maybe, gosh. So I want to say Stigmata with Gabriel Byrne.
Makes
It
sense.
really, he is Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle's
I
picked
maybe
that for
also
the
want to
show.
say Event Horizon. I also love the kind of wacko possession logic in that movie.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just go Evil Dead 2 though, right? You have those creepy dolly shots, or I think in Evil Dead they were like on an ATV or something like that. Yeah, it's like crazy, it's campy. Everybody loves Evil Dead 2. Let's go Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take you guys on a journey of ideas that came to me before I landed on my final decision. The very first scene of this movie, we see an old hunched over guy bringing the knights down into this little underground cavern. Immediately made me think of the Pit of Despair, so I wrote down Princess Bride as a potential double feature. Evan gets possessed. Just reminded me of Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black when he's like barely able to walk or stand. Then he rips out his beating heart. Obviously, Indiana Jones Temple of Doom comes to mind.
And they have an Indiana Jones reference in this.
They do. They did. I almost stuck with that one.
But
at the end
I didn't catch it.
Yeah, they're
she says he's like Indiana Jones with how much he loves like the old shit in the catacombs.
Well, no, she actually it's because they're banging and then he stops, Lisa and Evan, and they're having sex, and then he stops because he has this light bulb moment, and he takes what I believe is a large chrome lighter, and he puts it on the parchment, that round parchment, and then he can read the inscription backwards. And he goes, "Oh, it's like it could be the Ark of the Covenant. It could be make you a superhuman." And I was like, "Listen, you were just saying that the Teutonic Knights were the
Worst
archetype for
yeah,
Nazism, and Hitler loved the Teutonic Knights and used their cross as the Iron Cross, inspiration for the Iron Cross. I don't really know if you want to be the guy in this movie, this Italian guy. They also have a history of fascism. This Italian guy being like, I could become a Superman with all these powers, but then she just laughs it off.
His logic leap from there's an artifact in the basement of the church to it probably makes you a Superman. It's it's such a wild logic jump.
It's such a Nazi thought process. Like,
yeah, I know.
have none of you watched Hellboy? That's the entire point of the beginning of Hellboy.
It hadn't come out yet, Scott. But what I finally landed on was a movie that I actually just recently watched and then bought on Blu-ray, Day of the Beast. Which
you bought
is a film. Yeah, I did. Oh, yeah. Which is a film about a priest who realizes that he can stop Satan in his tracks and create a utopia, but in order to even come face to face with Satan, he has to become the biggest sinner of all time. So he goes on a killing spree in order to entice the devil.
He
to
also
come out.
steals money from panhandlers. He beats up
he
people
does
for
as
no
much,
reason.
he does as evil evil acts as he possibly can.
And listens to heavy metal because that's the most evil music.
Yes, he does. He befriends a metalhead who teaches him about the joys of Satan.
As you do. Yes.
As you do. So that would be the perfect double feature for me. Right here is where we would normally do the What's Going On segment. Just go to our website, hmnpodcast.com, buy some t-shirts, visit our Patreon, all that good jazz. Instead, for the rest of this episode, what we want to talk about is why Jordan is here. Your book, Youth Group, coming out very, very soon, actually, by the time this episode comes out. It might even be like the same week.
17th?
July 16th.
Okay, so you got a month. You can pre-order.
Yeah,
Get to the pre-order.
We love a pre-order.
Where do we pre-order it?
Oh, you pre-order it wherever you get your books. We're talking Amazon. We're talking Barnes & Noble. Hey, better yet, your local indie bookstore. There's a little website you can go to, bit.ly/youthgroupbook, bit.ly/youthgroupbook. It is a YA horror comedy. It's a graphic novel, art by the great Bowen McGurty, and it is about teenage exorcists. They're all in a kind of goofy Bible study group, and they actually have to do exorcisms when they're done singing parody songs about abstinence. So
Yes. I loved the dry erase board or the list motif if you're feeling like you're going to sin, what else could you do instead?
Oh,
I really,
yeah,
I
right.
loved
They have
that.
to make a chart with things you can
chart,
do
yes.
to avoid temptation. So yeah,
we should also mention that it's in the 90s. It's based in the 90s. So
in the 90s.
That's
yeah.
an important. It's
So
an
they're
important
listening
plot
to
device
lots
in my
of
opinion.
DC talk in jars of clay at that point in time.
There is
Jars of Clay
there's a
was
jars of
strong.
clay joke in the,
Yeah,
in the
there
book.
is.
So
That's a deep cut for people that. So Jordan, I only know how old you are because it's in your email address. You're a year younger than me, so we really had a very similar. I believe we had a very similar, yet divergent high school experience because you were
Okay.
in youth group, right?
Right.
And it
Yes,
would have
I
been
was.
right around the exact same time as my best friend was in a youth group and trying to get me to go with him to youth group. So I felt like I was very much the protagonist in youth group myself because at first, it does again diverge, but I can remember. I mean, I was Catholic growing up, so when the Baptist youth group, they're like, raise your hand if you aren't saved. And I'm like, I don't know. They're like, close your eyes, and then they're like, raise your hand
Right.
if you're not saved. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I go to church all the time, and then I luckily, like the smart boy I was, I didn't raise my hand, and some other schmuck raised their hand, and of course they made an example of him. I'm still to this day not sure if my buddy was going to youth group or for girls at youth group.
Look, there are both at youth
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I know. That's the funny thing about them is that there's the kids who are there because they're all in. There's the kids, maybe kind of like you, who are there under protest. You can always tell there were kids there.
Oh, I
who's
wasn't under
like-
protest. I just was there because I wanted to hang out,
Right, yeah, there's that for sure. There's kids whose parents made them go. And then there's a cute person I wanted to hook up with invited me. Me, also a part of it was the 90s, so they had punk and ska shows in the
Yeah.
in
Oh, we
the
gotta
youth
talk
group.
about that too. If you haven't listened to the Geekscape episode, the way that we got hooked up with Jordan is that Jonathan London, the Podfather, got hooked up with Jordan because Jordan is friends with Bria Grant, who was you were at an MXPX show, right?
I was, yeah.
And Bria's besties with Heidi, John's wife. And so it was just like, that's so funny to me because like, love punk and ska. Matt and I just constantly
my
talk about it.
first concert. I don't think I actually said this on the Geekscape show. I should have. The first concert I ever went to was Ska Mania '98, which was the Insiders, Five Iron Frenzy, and the Supertones.
Wow.
That was,
Yeah.
So
And it never got better from there. Just
No,
stopped
it's
going
been
to live
all
music.
downhill. Listen, actually, real talk.
Yeah.
My girlfriend really is excited that Childish Gambino tickets are going available, and the idea of spending more than $25 to see live music is just
appalling.
Like, I'm like, no, man, I went to
just-
basement shows. I don't get it.
I mean, now listen, Matt and I live, easterly. Like I'm in Ohio, Matt's in PA. You're in LA. I don't know how much an MXPX show is in LA. I'm not asking, but I'm going to share something with you. I just bought tickets for my wife and I to go see Newfound Glory doing their
Okay.
20 years of Catalyst show.
Yeah.
That's coming to Cleveland in August. And that shit was $100 plus.
Whoa.
It was like
Glory.
45.
Dang, all right.
I think it was $35 a ticket, which not terrible, but for a pop punk band, I'm like, fuck, I've never done this before, And
Kyle and I have been texting each other all day today because the Blood Brothers just announced a reunion tour, and they're playing in Philly. And I was like, they're playing at a venue that's literally I've never seen more than a $25 show at. So I'm like, I may have to shell out the $25 to see the Blood Brothers.
But if you buy it on the web, if you buy it on like the AXS or Ticketmaster website, they're gonna put all these insane fees on it, and that's why it came out to like $110 for 2 tickets.
Yeah,
that's
why I
crazy
don't
pants
do
for
this
pop
world
punk. I'm
anymore.
sorry, like I'm also a
Yeah.
musician. I would never expect somebody to pay $50 to see me play.
I could
I don't
understand
know.
paying that much for a ska band. There's a lot of guys that you got to feed in that band.
Real big fish. There's like 9 of them.
Sure. When the band has 10 people in it.
Yeah, every ticket's
it does not make
$5 to each
financial
member.
sense. Yeah. I'm going to a punk festival later on in the summer, and these tickets are in the appalling 3 digits. So
Now
this
is that a
No
1 day? Is it a 2 days?
It's a 1 day. It's called No Values. Very punk rock name. And
who are the headliners?
You got an Original Misfits. You got a Iggy Pop.
Danzig?
Yeah, with Danzig. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Together again.
That's crazy. Money, but it must have
Iggy
been
Pop,
good.
A Bad
That's
Religion.
what you're paying for.
Yeah. Sublime with the Guy's Kid.
I hope that's their official name. I hope they officially changed their names to Sublime with the Guy's Kid.
There was Sublime with Rome, and then there's Sublime with Guy's Kid. R.I.P. And then there's a little ska stage where you got a Fishbone. You got a Selector, I think. You got a Selector who we haven't seen in America in a while.
Solid.
And some other bands like that. So I think it's going to be a fun day. But definitely
that's
like
fair to do triple digits for it.
Not punk rock ticket prices. I will say.
No.
But bringing people over across the pond, that I get it.
Yeah.
Well, everybody go pick up a copy of Youth Group. Where can people also keep up with just everything you're doing beyond Youth Group? Do you have a central website for them?
Check me out on the social media. I'll be, hopefully going to cons and book events starting this summer. So maybe I can catch some of y'all out there at your finer cons and book events. At Jordan David Morris on Instagram, Jordan_Morris on Twitter, and I'll throw out that URL for Youth Group once again, bit.ly/youthgroupbook, and it comes out July 16th. But ooh boy, do we love a pre-order. I'm going to maybe take a wild guess and guess that folks listening to this have a local comic shop they love. They'll order it up for you. They'll put it on your pull list. So if it sounds cool, give us a pre-order. We love it.
And if people didn't listen to the Geekscape episode with you on it, you will be at San Diego Comic-Con with Matt, right?
Hopefully. We're working it out.
That's the plan. Okay. Yeah. So if you will be at San Diego Comic-Con, we're going to find a time for me to hang out at the Geekscape booth. So you can come by and get your Youth Group signed there.
All right, and we'll be back next week with more Horror Movie Night.
You've been lost in the woods for hours now, stumbling around in the dark. You come around the bend and see 2 people roasting marshmallows over a roaring fire. They see you coming into the clearing and gesture over to pull up a log. Welcome to Campfire Ashes. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jess. Join us as we tell each other our originally written spooky stories around the campfire and then dive into the lore and legends that inspired them. Is it something that goes bump in the night? Is it something menacing lurking past the tree line? Or is it just weird and otherworldly? You'll find it here on Campfire Ashes.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or right here on the Geekscape Network.
What's up, everybody? This is Brian here to tell you about our podcast, Bingetown TV. Our hosts include 7 best friends with a love for all things television. We cover a range of genres with a focus on fantasy and sci-fi, but also dip our feet into drama, horror, comedy, and pretty much anything we think is good television. We use the traditional deep dive formula for new live shows that are released week to week, but our calling card is our Rooks and Vets and Pitchtown TV series. Rooks and Vets pairs 2 of our hosts that have seen a show with 2 of our hosts that have not seen a show. Pitchtown TV is when we have a special guest pitch us a show by having us watch the pilot and trying to convince us to watch the rest. If you're craving more content on some of your favorite TV shows, then you should listen to Bingetown TV. Find us on our website at bingetowntv.com, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, or wherever else you may find your podcast.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.